Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hey, Enchilada Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Whole Enchilada. So excited to have you with me here today for the solo cast in reflection of Father's Day. This last weekend, a lot of us around the world were celebrating Father's Day. And so for all of you fathers out there who are part of the Enchilada Nation, I hope you had an incredible Father's Day and felt very appreciated and loved for your role as father. I know a lot of times we talk about your role as an entrepreneur on the podcast, but as you know, the whole purpose of the Whole Enchilada is to remain balanced across all platforms of life. And in my view, there is no greater role or title that I own personally than being a father to my beautiful daughters and a husband to my wife. And if all those other things in my world aren't either serving them directly or making me better as a person to better serve them in those capacities, it probably should be reconsidered or reprioritized. I thought it would be interesting today to share a little bit around the topic of fatherhood, and specifically talking about the three fathers that are most close to me in this regards. Number one is I want to talk a little bit about my own dad and some of the lessons that I've learned through him. I also want to share today a couple of the main lessons that I've learned as being a father to my daughters. And I know there's so much more I can do to be a better dad to them. And then three, making mention of the greatest father of all, God. And I really love, even though he has a lot of titles, I love that title of him, of being a father, as it creates that intimate relationship. And I want to share some of the things, some of my thoughts around that and some of the challenges around that as well. So let's start the conversation today around my dad. If any of you have ever had the opportunity to meet my dad, see my dad, and one of my favorite things to do is if I'm in a business meeting or a lunch somewhere, and it just happens to be that my dad's at the same restaurant, he'll come over and he loves introducing himself because instantly the person on the other side of the table is incredulous or doesn't believe that that's my dad. My dad is a rough and tumble cowboy character. You will see him in his cowboy hat and cowboy boots and vest, ponytail, beard, and everything, and just really has this persona. There's been times that he's been up in Wyoming or Yellowstone, and the professional photographers that are there to take pictures of Old Faithful or something like that stop him and ask him if they could take his picture just because he looks like he came out of the wild, wild west. And not only does he look that way, but honestly, some of his attributes as a human being, you would guess he came straight out of the wild, wild west, which really created some interesting times growing up with him. And some of my favorite memories are of my dad. And honestly, to this day, my dad is really one of my closest mentors and friends. And a lot of times when I'm having a bad day, he's still the one that I call, not necessarily for more advice, but sometimes it's just like, I need to know I got my backup man. He would drop anything at the drop of a hat to come take care of me and my family. But here's a couple things that I wanted to share with you that I learned from my dad growing up. Number one is I believe that I got the greatest inheritance of time, and I got it early. And that was the gift of learning the love to work hard. My dad was the hardest and still is one of the hardest working, toughest son of a guns you'll ever meet. And all growing up, actually, when I was really little, there wasn't a lot of construction in Utah. My dad grew up as a construction worker and owned a construction company. So I don't have a lot of memories as a younger child with him because he was out of town a lot, making sure that he could provide for our family. But even through my early teen years and even a couple of years before that, I just remember a lot of times waking up to the sound of his diesel engine starting up at the wee hours of the morning, and he'd be gone well before any of us woke up, and he would come home after it was dark every day, just out there grinding and making things happen. And at a very young age, it was our responsibility with the boys in our house that we had to start working at a very young age. And to be honest, there were times I hated my dad for it. because while a lot of my friends were out playing and going to baseball in the park and lagoon and all those things, I was on a concrete crew with a bunch of just really rough group of men, pouring concrete or and working there. And I remember all growing up that there was two things that gave us permission to miss work in the summer. And that was, number one is Boy Scout camp was the greatest week of all time because Boy Scouts was fun, but it was because I didn't have to work that week, which is pretty awesome. And then also when baseball season started towards the end of summer, if we had games, we could miss to go to the games. Those were basically the two things that we could miss work for all summer long. Otherwise, we were there at the same time the men were, and we ended the day the same time those men did working. And although there was some resentment around that at a young age, I quickly took a lot of pride in my work. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to show these grown men that I could keep up with them. And by my late teen years, me and my brothers all were running our own crews and learning leadership skills along the way. So I really learned hard work for him, and that serves me today to this day. I am not the smartest entrepreneur, nor am I the most savvy entrepreneur, but I tell people all the time, you're going to have a really hard time outworking me. I have a incredible work ethic, as do all my brothers, and we owe that to my parents, and particularly my dad. I remember a lot of times beyond just working on a concrete crew, there was anytime someone needed something in our neighborhood, someone's house was flooding or a big snowstorm came in, my dad took huge pride in busting into our rooms at the wee hours of the morning saying, it's time to go to work. That's all he had to say. And we didn't have to question what it was. It was time to get up and go. And we'd often go help people in the neighborhood, either shovel their walks or help them with a flooding issue or pulling out a tree or whatever it was. And one of my dad's favorite things is when we were just working our guts out, you could hear someone say, man, those greens know how to work. And you could just see my dad beam with pride when that was the sentiment of we weren't known for a lot of things, but we were known for the hard workers. And that was a clear attribute for my dad. Number two, another lesson that I really learned from my dad is this quiet servitude. There were so many instances growing up that I remember people cornering him at church or in the neighborhood and trying to thank him for some quiet act of service that was done anonymously that they knew was him. And my dad would get this little sheepish, like look down at the ground and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't me. And we all knew that it was him. He just had this way of hearing and knowing what people needed, and it was not a show for him to get recognition or accolades for that service. And particularly him being in the construction industry and me seeing him in that capacity, there were families, split families that were here from part of them were here from Mexico or Peru or Honduras or from all different parts of life, working here and sending money back to their families. And there were often these unique challenges that those families faced. And there was multiple times that I would see some of these grown men come out of my dad's office with tears in their eyes, and my dad patting them on the back. And I knew that he had stepped up and done something for them. And I didn't really know this growing up. There were times that my family probably wasn't really in a position where we should have been stepping up to help other families because we were in need ourselves in some ways. And my dad just had a monster heart of wanting to help. And again, you wouldn't guess it looking at him a lot of the times because he was the stature of a man. But he just really had this soft heart for people and wanting to help them, but not in a way of wanting that the accolades for it, which I really love. And that's something that I want to adopt at a higher level. I find myself doing things for people. That's definitely something I could do more of and do it on a quiet level. Number three, the third lesson I learned from my dad that I really am grateful for, and it really shows up in a big way for me now, is my dad taught us at a very young age the importance to respect other people and just really respect people for who they are and where they're at. A couple instances of this was he always made sure that we addressed people in a very respectful way. It was if it was an adult in the room, it was never calling them by their first name. It was Mr. or Mrs. And even to the point, if they said, no, just call me Steve, it was, nope, it's Mr. Hadley. Like he demanded that we respected our elders and we listened to them. And when they were talking, we paid attention, and just learning that level of respect for people was a great lesson for me. And particularly respecting women and their role. I had my mom all growing up. I don't think I've ever seen her open her own door growing up, because she had 5 boys all fighting for the chance to open the car door or the house door or the church door or whatever for her as we went places. And there was a lot of times that after time that was built as a habit, that it was done out of respect, but there was also a time that it was done out of fear of, like, if we do not open this door, Dad is going to lose it. Same thing for my sister growing up, is that was a big thing, and that has adopted over time when you're still showing a lot of respect. And the interesting thing, again, a lot of you guys know that I have 4 daughters. Again, growing up in a house of 5 boys and 1 girl, there was a lot of GI Joes and fist fights and sports in my house growing up. Now my house is full of these beautiful young ladies that I love and respect at such a high level. And I feel like a lot of what my dad taught me of respecting womanhood prepped me for that opportunity to be their dad, be my daughter's dad. So those were the, as I thought on my walk this morning and reflected upon the lessons I learned from my dad, a lot of things came to mind. But those are the top 3 lessons I learned from my dad. And I do have to share one last story about my dad that is just one of my favorite memories. I remember he was asked to teach a class of young scouts. And he walked in the first day with the scouts and didn't say a word, but pulled a penny out of his pocket and looked those boys in the eye and held the penny up. And I was one of those young kids, and I didn't know what was going on. I knew my dad was tough, but he wanted to establish up front of, like, I'm not going to take any crap from anybody. And he took that penny and he put it in his mouth, and he literally bit the penny in half. He started bending and squeezing the penny between his teeth and his fingers, and eventually that penny broke right in half. And the look on these boys' face, their jaws hit the floor and they could not believe it. And I will tell you, that was the most obedient group of 12 and 13-year-old boys that has ever walked the face of the planet. And only years later did my dad reveal the secret to me, that he had already had somebody cut halfway through the penny on the back side so that it wasn't that hard to finish the breaking process. But I just really loved his strategic tactic there of, like, man, I do not want to put up with the crap from these kids, so I'm just going to lay down the law day one. And he made it happen. So Dad, if you're listening to this, I love you. Thank you for being in my world. Thanks for still being my rock when I need you, and knowing that I can count on you. Next, I started thinking this morning a lot about what are the lessons that I've learned as being a dad myself. And again, this is the greatest role and title that I have, is being a dad to these beautiful girls of Abby, Meg, Lucy, and Grace. And I love them so much. I'm so excited to see what they accomplish in this world. And I don't know about you guys, but I started this process thinking, what are the lessons that I learned? And instantly my mind went to places of, man, there's so much more that I could be doing to be a better dad to these girls. And then even letting my mind go someplace it shouldn't, of, man, I'm not a good dad in some ways. There's so much more I could do. They deserve a better dad. And that's just not a safe place to go mentally. And I don't even know why I allowed my brain to go there, because the lessons that I'm learning from them, and I truly believe that I was selected to be their dad, not only for what I can do for them and who I can be for them, but I also believe it was equally chosen and paired by a deity for what I can learn and get from them. And that's humbling to think that as the dad and as the provider and the person they look up to and the person that makes them feel most safe in the world is I've got to be that person for them. But at the same time, I've got to really pay attention to what can I learn from these human beings along the way. And it is so fun to see them develop and grow. And it's so interesting to see as little babies, they're almost the same, right? Like every baby, but as they get older, they grow and develop and bring on these different traits. And it's so interesting, the traits they share, that all of them have, and the ones that are so unique and specific to each one of them. And I just love learning from them and what they bring to my life. But here's a couple things lessons that came to mind that I thought of this morning as I was reflecting on this. Number one, the first thing that I think that I really have learned by being a dad is it is a completely new kind of love that you feel for your children than you feel for yourself, than you feel for your spouse, than you feel for anybody else. And the first time you hold your kid in your arms and look at them and watch them grow up, it's and it's not necessarily, as I was thinking about it, it's not a new love or an additional love. It's just a new layer of love. And because of the love I have for my children, I feel like I love more deeply in even the other aspects of my life, and other people, not just my children, but because of the love I have for my children, it augmented my ability to love. And I'm so grateful for that. There's a lot of responsibility that comes as a parent that you don't think about until you're actually a parent. It's as you look at your kid, your child as a baby, and as they continually grow up, there's this overwhelming responsibility of who do I need to be for this person. And as you know, a lot of us in the community are very committed to self-growth, self-development, and being a dad or a parent actually throws flames on that responsibility very quickly, because it's not just about you anymore. If you fail as a human being for yourself, a lot of times you only fail yourself and the people in your immediate vicinity. But now, if I fail as a father, and when I say fail as a father, is I'm having failures along the way, but failures, succeeding and growing through failure is actually a recipe for success. It's failing and letting the failure define you is what is true failure in a role. So I in no way want to portray that I'm a perfect dad, or even a great dad for that matter, because I fail regularly. However, I'm looking for and seeking for the opportunity to grow through those failures in this role and in this responsibility. But I think this goes hand in hand with what I said a minute ago about being a dad or a parent actually increases your ability to love across all platforms differently, because there can be no greater love than your responsibility to grow and develop and secure and provide for another human life, which I'm really grateful that my kids have given me that. And luckily they're really easy to love. And part of that, I think part of that love becomes really apparent when my kids have a victory and a success. It's as if I'm experiencing that same victory and success with them, and it fills me up. It makes me so happy inside, as if I was having that victory, that experience myself. And on the other side of that is when my kids are in pain, when they're feeling pain and sad. It's so interesting that same pain I feel it internally with them and for them. And I just think that's part of that a bit. You're increasing your ability to love, as it also increases your ability to be empathetic and sympathetic to other people in a new way that I've only been able to find through the pathway of parenthood. The second lesson that my kids have taught me and continue to teach me and continue to teach me at an even faster pace now that three of them are in their teenage years is patience. A lot of you know that I am a fast-paced, hustle, go-getting person, and generally speaking, I wouldn't say that patience is one of my virtues. However, this is something that I have to work on and grow and be patient and a better listener and a better understanding people's positions and thinking things through to be a better dad for them. We have a running joke in my family that there's two places that dad's guaranteed to lose his cool and his patience, and there's something about going through a fast food restaurant with 6 people and 4 kids in the car that are all indecisive and can't decide what they want. that just somehow is a trigger for me, where I'm just like, I hate going through a fast food lane with everybody in, where we're all making custom orders and they're telling me over my shoulder and I'm trying to articulate it through the microphone. So if you ever want to see me lose my cool, either go through a fast food restaurant with me with all my kids, and the other one is somehow going through TSA at an airport with a bunch of kids is my trigger. And I think it's because I've got those systems down so well for myself, that I'm so used from a selfish standpoint of like, this is easy, we fly through this. But all of a sudden, when my kids are there, it is literally a joke in our house that if they want to stress me out, they say, let's go through a fast food line or a TSA. And the reason I don't know why I'm sharing this with the community, because it shows how ridiculous it is. And I'll probably continue to do it just so we keep the running joke in our family. But lesson number 2 for me is increasing and learning patience at a higher level, which again floods over into the rest of my world. And then number 3 is this has been being a parent and a dad has really helped me reprioritize and redefine what success and wealth looks like for me. Where before I had kids, and even when my kids were young and I really hadn't started putting the pieces together on a bigger scale of what my responsibility was and is in helping them grow and become better people. A lot of what I defined wealth and success looked like was what I wanted to look like and be perceived as to other people, and not necessarily what that wealth and success provided for me and my family, both financially and in the form of time. And that has changed for me over time with having my kids, of saying wealth and success look differently for me, because the whole purpose of any amount of wealth that I can accumulate and success that I can create is for a couple of reasons. Number 1 is, what lessons am I teaching my kids to help them become successful and good contributors to society and good providers for their families? And am I modeling that for them? Am I showing them that they can achieve at a high level in both business and life? So number 1 is, if I have to define success and create a pathway in such a way that is a modeling for my kids what I want them to do and where I believe they can find happiness. 2 is, as a provider, am I creating wealth in such a way that I can, and I'm very careful and I've structured this in a way that I don't want my kids to feel entitled to anything that we may have, or I should say, and I also want the ability that if life deals them a card of catastrophe or something horrible happens, that I have the ability to step in and support where they may not be able to support themselves with their family. And then number 3 is time. Is I recognize more now than ever that time is a diminishing resource. And as I'm getting older, my ability and my ability to have time is reduced. Am I spending time where it matters most? And in my opinion, the most important time I can spend is purposeful time with my kids and with my family, having fun and working and serving and growing with them and making sure they have every opportunity that life can provide for them. So those 3 lessons again are a new kind and deeper type of love, or ability to love. They're constantly teaching me patience, which I'm incredibly grateful for, and they've helped me be more grounded and shift my priorities, because nothing is more important to me than my family, and I want to give them all of the best version of me. They deserve the best version of me, and that time, they should never feel like my time is divided between them and other people, and that's something that I'm constantly working on. The last thing I want to make mention of again is in honor of Father's Day, honoring a father in heaven that I'm really grateful for. And it's interesting for me, one of my favorite books talks about, it says the quality of a relationship equals the quality of the conversation. Hence, it's teaching the lesson that if you want to increase the quality of a relationship with someone, you have to increase the quality of the conversation, Well, if you think about the two previous relationships that I've been talking about, the relationship I have with my dad, the relationship I have with my daughters, is that's an easy easy conversation to look at, to say, I can easily get face to face with my dad, like in a drop of a hat. I can call him and he would come to me, I could come to him, and we could look each other in the eye and we could have a conversation. And a conversation just isn't words. It's what words are being said, what words are being heard, what is the body language, what are the contours and shifts of the face, the tonality of it. And all of those things can be analyzed in a conversation from human being to human being. And I think one of the things that's for me, even though I do believe in a loving Father in heaven, I think one of the challenges I've had is I'm so big on communication and that conversation, that a lot of times I felt like my conversation with a Father in heaven has been one-sided, because I can't see and I can't feel that other side of the conversation as clearly as I can with these other responsibilities or other relationships that I have in my world. So as I thought about that this morning, it made me think through, number one, there's more I can do there to grow that relationship and show honor to that relationship for a Father and a God that I know loves me, loves my family, and has given me the ability to be a dad and increase my ability to love them, which in turn also should increase my ability to love and honor him. And the thought that came to me from that thought process this morning was that perhaps I need to increase my humility and quiet time to grow that relationship personally and honor it for what it is. To wrap up this conversation, I know it's been a little bit more of a somber and direct solo cast. It's always a little different to not have a guest on the other side of the camera, but I did want to share with some of my sentiments this morning as I had the ability to go on a long hike in beautiful St. George, Utah this morning with my wife, and just have some quiet time to think through this. And I am again indeed grateful for my opportunity to be a dad and to have a great dad. And I want to honor those relationships as I do all the important relationships in my world at a higher level. And I encourage you, Enchilada Nation, that as you're thinking through your own life and your own responsibility, whether you're a dad, you're a mom, or you have relationships that are important to you of any respect, if that relationship is important to you, I encourage you to take the time to think through, what is it about that relationship that's important to me? And am I doing my part to grow that relationship? And that was one of the thoughts I had with my own dad, was here I am thinking about him and his responsibility as my dad. But for him to succeed as a dad, I have to be a great son. I have to contribute to the relationship. And I think that's true for any relationship we face. I truly believe that the two greatest lessons we can learn as human beings that will serve us at a high level is our ability to communicate and our ability to solve problems. If we can communicate at a high level, and communication is, again, way more than just speaking words and hearing words, but really communicating and identifying what are the issues and then going through the process of that we've identified an issue, we can solve the problem, will bind people together and grow those relationships. And life really is about building relationships, and success shows up through people, through those relationships. So Enchilada Nation, thank you for letting me share my thoughts with you today. Thank you for being part of the community. Do not forget to go like, share our podcast, our social media with other people. Let's grow this community. Let's continue to grow together. And don't forget, go live life on your terms.